Some children don't slowly grow into adulthood. They're pushed into it, not by choice, but by circumstances. They learn responsibility before they learn play. They understand stress before they understand fun. And while other kids are discovering cartoons and games, they're discovering survival. At first, people call them mature, strong, wise for their age, but psychology sees something much deeper happening beneath the surface. Because when childhood ends too early, it doesn't disappear. It stays, quietly shaping emotions, relationships, and identity for the rest of life. In this video, we'll explore the psychology of children who lost their childhood early, how early responsibility rewires the brain, why they often struggle with trust and rest, and the hidden emotional patterns that follow them into adulthood. Some children don't remember a clear moment when childhood ended. It fades. Maybe they were 8 years old, standing in the kitchen, making sure younger siblings had eaten. Maybe they learned to read adult moods before reading storybooks. Maybe they became the emotional translator during arguments. Nothing dramatic, just thousands of small responsibilities added too early. Psychology calls this early role reversal, when a child becomes emotionally or practically responsible for things beyond their age. At first, it looks like maturity. They're calm, they're helpful, they don't complain. But inside, their nervous system is quietly switching into survival mode. Instead of learning safety through play, they learn stability through control. Their brain builds a different operating system, one that constantly scans for problems, one that stays alert, one that believes rest must be earned. The child absorbs a silent lesson. My needs come last. From the outside, they seem strong. Inside, they're holding their breath. And here's what most people miss. Growing up too fast doesn't just change childhood. It becomes the blueprint for adulthood. In the next section, we'll explore how this early pressure rewires emotional development, and why these children often grow into adults who struggle to truly relax. When a child carries adult weight too early, their emotional system adapts, not for happiness, for survival. Their brain becomes like an alarm system that never fully turns off. They notice tone changes instantly. They sense tension in rooms. They anticipate needs before anyone speaks. This creates what psychologists describe as emotional self-suppression. They learn to pause their own feelings. They become skilled at managing others. They stay quiet, useful, and composed. Over time, this turns into a form of independence that looks impressive, but feels exhausting. As adults, they often struggle to rest without guilt. They feel uncomfortable receiving care. They confuse calm with emptiness. Their mind constantly runs background calculations. What needs fixing? Who needs help? What could go wrong? It's like carrying 17 possible futures in their head at once. Here's the hidden cost. They become experts at holding everything together, but beginners at understanding themselves. They don't feel safe slowing down, because slowing down once meant things fell apart, and many never realize why. In the next section, we'll look at how this emotional wiring shapes adult relationships, and why closeness can quietly feel dangerous. Children who grow up too fast usually learn one quiet rule early. Don't depend on anyone. They became strong before they felt safe. They solved problems alone. They carried emotions that were never meant to be theirs, so their nervous system builds protection through distance. As adults, this shows up in subtle ways. They want connection but pull back when it gets real. They care deeply but struggle to fully trust. They crave support yet feel uncomfortable receiving it. Psychologically, this is protective independence. Their brain links vulnerability with danger. Closeness doesn't feel comforting, it feels like responsibility. They may choose emotionally unavailable partners because that feels familiar. They become the strong one in friendships, or they avoid deep attachment altogether, not because they don't want love, but because love once meant pressure, caretaking, or emotional overload. Relationships became places where they performed, not places where they rested. So even healthy connection can activate anxiety. They overthink messages. They scan for changes in tone. They prepare for disappointment before it arrives. Here's the painful part. They give warmth easily but struggle to feel held. In the next section, we'll explore how this survival pattern shapes identity and why many of these adults feel valuable only when they're useful. For children who lost their childhood early, love often came with conditions. They were praised for helping, noticed for being responsible, appreciated for staying strong, so their identity quietly formed around usefulness. Psychology calls this conditional self-worth. They learned, I matter when I'm needed. As adults, this becomes a pattern. They feel uncomfortable doing nothing. They feel guilty resting. They feel anxious when they aren't contributing. They become problem solvers, caretakers, emotional anchors. From the outside, they look dependable. Inside, they feel replaceable. Many struggle to recognize their own wants. They say yes automatically. They push through exhaustion without noticing. Success doesn't bring peace. It brings temporary relief, because achievement isn't about joy, it's about safety. Their nervous system still believes that being useful prevents loss, and when they're no longer needed, something collapses inside. Their sense of identity fades. Here's what hurts most: they don't feel valuable for existing. They feel valuable for carrying. In the next section, we'll look at how this survival-based identity leads to burnout, emotional numbness, and constant overthinking, even in people who appear high-functioning. Many adults who grew up too fast appear highly capable. They handle pressure. They stay organized. They rarely ask for help. But what looks like strength is often long-term survival. Their nervous system never learned how to fully power down. So even during rest, their mind keeps running. They replay conversations. They predict problems. They mentally prepare for situations that haven't happened yet. It feels like carrying an invisible backpack filled with unfinished responsibilities. Over time, this creates deep emotional fatigue. Some become numb. Some feel constantly overwhelmed. Many swing between productivity and exhaustion. Psychologically, this happens because slowing down once meant things fell apart. So stillness feels unsafe. They distract themselves with work, helping others, or staying busy. Not because they enjoy it, but because stopping brings up feelings they never had space to feel. Their body stays in quiet, alert mode. Always ready, always tense. Here's the truth most people miss: they aren't burned out from doing too much. They're burned out from being strong for too long. In the final section, we'll explore how healing begins and how these adults slowly learn to feel safe without carrying everything alone. Healing for someone who lost their childhood early doesn't start with changing habits. It starts with teaching the nervous system that danger is no longer constant. These adults don't need to become tougher. They need permission to soften. Psychology shows that recovery comes through small moments of safety: letting someone help without apologizing, resting without explaining, noticing personal needs before responding to others. At first, this feels uncomfortable. Because peace feels unfamiliar to a system trained for survival. Many struggle with a strange question: does this even count as trauma? There was no single event, just thousands of quiet moments where they had to grow up too soon. But emotional neglect and early responsibility leave real imprints. Healing also means grieving. Grieving the childhood they never fully had. Grieving the version of themselves that learned love meant being useful. Slowly, something shifts. They begin separating worth from productivity. They learn that connection doesn't require performance. They realize they don't have to carry everything alone. Growing up too fast was an adaptation, not a personality. And adaptations can be gently unlearned. They may not get their childhood back, but they can finally give themselves something just as important: safety, rest, and permission to be human. By the end, you'll understand what really happens when a child grows up too fast, and why the effects last far longer than anyone realizes.